Welcome to my Big Backyard Book Club. I love this book. It's about when you were small, the world seems big.
When You Were Small is written by Sarah O'Leary and illustrated by Julie Morstad. Look at Sarah and her mom, Farah. They're going to read with us.
I'm gonna curl up in my book nook. What about you? Are you comfy?
Hi, Gisele.
Hi, guys.
Every night at bedtime, Henry and his father have a chat. It always begins the same way.
Dad, says Henry, tell me about when I was small. When you were small, you used to have a pet ant and you would take him out for walks on a leash.
When you were small, we used you as a chess piece because our chessboard was missing one of the nights and you were the perfect size. When you were small, we used to give you baths in a teapot, and when you were done, we could just tip it over and pour you out.
When you were small, we let you sleep in one of my slippers, the left one. You used a fuzzy washcloth for a blanket and a tea bag for a pillow. When you were small, your mother once lost you in the bottom of her purse. When she found you again, you were clinging to an earring she'd lost 3 years before. When you were small, you wore a thimble for a hat.
When you were small, you rode on the cat's back like you were an emperor and he was an elephant.
When you were small, you used a ruler for a toboggan. When you were small, we put you on top of the Christmas tree instead of the angel.
I said you put a star on the top of a Christmas tree.
You can also put an angel, so he's on top. So they said, he's smaller, he can fit on the treetop better.
Okay.
When you were small, you couldn't hold a spoon, so you used it to sit on the edge of my porridge bowl and dip your head in like a baby bird.
When you were small, we brushed your hair with a toothbrush. When you were small, we took the toy castle out of the aquarium and you were king of it.
When you were small, I used to carry you around in the pocket of my shirt. Your little head would just stick out and your little hands would grip onto the edge of the cloth. Actually, you ripped a lot of my shirts that way.
Could you imagine being so small that you could fit in someone's pocket?
When you were small, says his dad, we wanted to call you Hieronymus, but it was too big a name for you, and so we shortened it to Henry. Dad, says Henry, is all that true? Well, says his dad, don't you remember? The end.
What a great book. This book is one of my favorites because it makes me giggle. If I were small, I'd be a bookmark and I'd slide into this book. What would you do if you were small?
The last thing I would want to do if I was small is take a ride on a bird.
Great! Thanks for joining us.
Bye, Gisele.
Thanks for reading with us.
Every day, you've got the need. Every day, you've got to read. Bye.
When You Were Small is written by Sarah O'Leary and illustrated by Julie Morstad and published by Simply Read Books. To join my Big Backyard Book Club, log on to TVOKids.com and click on the Big Backyard button.